Hello everyone! In this week's video, I'm going to be giving some tips for drawing hands. If you go up to an artist and ask them what they struggled with when it comes to drawing, or what they did struggle with, I bet many artists would say hands. Hands are hard to draw because they can look so different depending on the view, and there are many different parts to draw. They are complicated, bend at many different points, and there are tons of bones and tendons, and it can be really confusing. When I was younger and an artist would say that they liked to draw hands, I would be like, I bet they don't actually like drawing hands. They're just saying that because everyone else doesn't like to draw them. Well now, after many years of drawing, I too kind of like to draw hands. I like them now because I feel like I understand them more. Don't get me wrong, I still have a ton to learn about hands. But often when I don't like drawing something, it's because I don't understand the thing I'm trying to draw. And hands can take a while to understand. So hopefully this video can help you understand hands a little bit more. Anyways, in this video I'm going to start by giving tips and then we'll do an overview of my hand drawing process. Also, I've made videos on hands before, so some of the things I say will overlap with some of my previous videos. Just because you learn to draw a hand in front view does not mean you can draw it in all views. When learning to draw the hand, you almost have to think of it as its own body, if that makes sense. So when learning to draw the body, you don't only learn how to draw it in front view, you learn how to draw it in many views, like side, 3/4, back, and so on. The same applies for hands. When I was a beginner, I would only watch tutorials on hands in front view and draw hands in front view, but I would then be frustrated when I would try to draw the hand in a different position. I would think to myself, I can draw the hand in front view, so why can't I draw it in other positions? And the reason for that is because all of the shapes of the hand can look so different depending on the position. So you have to learn how those different shapes appear when in those different positions. So yeah, you need to practice drawing the hand in many views, not only front view. So now let's start going over the different parts of the hand. The palm. First, let's talk about the palm. The palm is the base of the hand, so it's an important part to get right. If the palm isn't the right shape or proportion, it can be really tricky to place the fingers. Some artists draw a block shape to represent the palm. I draw a shape that bumps out on the side with the thumb. I have found this works better for me. You can decide what works best for you. I like to draw this shape because it includes the thumb more, and because of this it helps me place the thumb with the palm. When I try to draw just the block shape, I have a hard time placing the thumb for some reason. Practice drawing the shape of the palm in different positions. Being able to draw the palm in different positions is really helpful. Like I mentioned, the palm is the base of the hand, so if you can draw the base correctly, it'll be easier to place things like the fingers and the thumb. I recommend looking at pictures of hands or your own hand and then try to draw just the shape of the palm. I also recommend doing this a lot with many different poses. The palm sticks out on the side with the thumb. When I first started drawing, I would always try to make the palm the same width as the wrist. This would make it really hard to place the fingers because the palm would be really narrow. The palm actually bumps out a little on the side with the thumb. It's pretty flat on the side of the pinky, but it does go out a little bit. The top of the palm is curved. Many beginners, including myself when I was younger, will draw the top of the palm really flat. This can make things look a little odd when you add the fingers. The palm should be drawn slightly curved on the top. The details of the palm. Different artists will render the inside of the palm differently. I'm still trying to find how I like to do it. Some people indicate the lines of the palm, while others will indicate the masses of skin on the palm. I don't know how to describe it, but you know, it's kind of more sunken in the middle, and then you got kind of the bump for the thumb pad, and then the bump on the side where the pinky is, and then kind of the bump along the top. Also, the knuckles and tendons are part of the palm, but I'm going to cover those with the fingers. The thumb. I'm going to cover the thumb on its own because it's not really a finger. So yeah. With the thumb we have 2 knuckles, unlike with fingers that have 3. With the thumb we also have the thumb pad. The thumb pad kind of likes to change in appearance depending on the position of the thumb. If the thumb is overlapping the palm, the thumb pad becomes more prominent than when it was being stretched out. I often indicate the thumb pad with a circular shape. So for the thumb we have the 3 main parts, the thumb pad, the middle part of the thumb, and then the tip of the thumb. I always really exaggerate the tip of the thumb. I make it really curved on one side and really flat on the other side. This just really helps it have the appearance of a thumb. I also really try to emphasize the first knuckle. because it's pretty prominent. The fingers. Now it's time to talk about the fingers. This is where things get really complicated, but let's try our best. The middle finger is the longest and is usually around the same length as the palm. You can make it a bit longer or shorter depending on your preference. I tend to make the middle finger a bit shorter than the palm, but I think that's just because my middle finger is a bit shorter than my palm. The fingers line up in a curved way. When drawing other fingers, it can help to draw curves that connect the different knuckles and tips of the fingers. Like I mentioned before, the palm is not flat, it is curved. So the way the fingers line up is also curved. Flat on top, curved on bottom. When looking at the finger in side view, we will see that the top is really flat and the bottom is more rounded. This is a good thing to keep in mind when drawing fingers because it really helps to make the finger look like a finger. When I used to draw them, I would draw both sides really rounded, and this would kind of make them look like a sausage. It took me a really long time to notice that the top is flat and the bottom is rounded. 3 cylinders. The fingers are basically 3 cylinders stacked together. A lot of times when sketching out the fingers or when I'm thinking about the fingers, I think of them in 3 cylinder segments. I find this helps me better understand the finger because instead of trying to draw this one long mass, I'm thinking of it as 3 individual shapes. Don't be afraid to add details. If you struggle with your fingers looking like sausages like I did, it can help to add more details. Things like the knuckles and crease lines. When I was a beginner, I wouldn't add these details because I didn't want my hands to look old. I, for some reason, thought if I added any kind of knuckle or wrinkle details, it would make the hands look really old or masculine. This isn't really the case. You can add details, but it depends on how much you define those details that make them appear or come off a certain way. I would also not add details because I didn't really know where to put them, so let's talk about that. Creases. There are 3 points where the fingers crease: at the base of the finger, around the middle knuckle, and around the 3rd knuckle. Don't be afraid to emphasize these. They can be really prominent when the finger is majorly bent. Subtle curves. This is something I didn't really notice when I was a beginner, and that is that hands contain many subtle curves. For the fingers, I make the curves go out around the knuckles and then back in for the areas between each knuckle. It can be really helpful to study hands and see where they slightly curve in and where they slightly curve out, because adding these super subtle curves can help your hands look more like hands. Knuckles of the palm and the tendons. For these, I keep things generally pretty simple. For my male characters, I'll define the knuckles and tendons a bit more than I do on my female characters. I draw some lines to indicate the knuckles. I'll usually only indicate the middle one because it's the most prominent. I'll sometimes indicate the other ones with subtle lines. I then add another line for the tendon. Also, for the fingers and tendons, they don't go straight up and down. They kind of go in towards the middle bottom area of the palm, and they all kind of converge to that point. So that's something to keep in mind. Where the fingers meet the palm. I hated this area when I was a beginner. I never knew how to draw this area between the fingers. When drawing the hand open towards us, the area between the fingers go like this. I don't really know how to explain it, so I'm going to try to just show you. The skin goes kind of from one finger and then overlaps the other finger. When the back of the hand is towards us, the fingers go down into the palm a bit more, and we can see more of the webbing between the fingers. So those are my tips for the different parts of the hand. Now let's go over my hand drawing process. So a lot of this is going to be real time. A little bit later on, I do speed things up a little bit to 2 times speed. But I start out by doing my rough sketch of the hand. I'm just kind of trying to get the big shapes in place, and I'm trying not to worry too much about the details. And right now I'm getting the palm in place because the palm is very important. Here is the picture I was using as a reference, so you kind of understand what I'm trying to draw. I wasn't trying to draw the pose exactly, just trying to copy it a little bit. Also, you'll notice that I drew this edge right here. I drew this to help me better understand the 3D shape of the palm because the palm is kind of coming towards us and that area is kind of flat if you look at it. Now I draw the detail of the knuckle for the middle finger. The knuckle for the middle finger is often the most prominent, so that's why I draw it the most. Now I'm trying to get the shape of the finger in place. This pose was a little complicated because the fingers are slightly coming towards us, but the point past the middle knuckle is kind of bending downwards. I indicate this with shading later on. So yeah, I'm just kind of breaking up the fingers into cylinder-like shapes, and I'm just trying to imagine what those different cylinders look like when in the different positions that they are in. Like I mentioned, the fingers are coming slightly towards us, so there is a little bit of foreshortening going on. I also add in the thumb right here. For the ring finger, I decided to move it a little closer to the middle finger. I often like to have the ring finger and the middle finger kind of touching, and they're kind of their own little thing, and then I'll kind of have the pinky on its own. I don't know, I always just kind of like drawing the hand like this, and it always looks kind of elegant, I think. I was struggling with the pinky a little bit. I kind of play around with the shape of the pinky. So after doing my rough sketch, I resize my sketch to a larger size on my canvas and I start adding the details. I'm going in with a slightly smaller brush. While I'm doing this, I'm trying to remember all of the subtle curves of the hand. So the palm often kind of curves inwards depending on the position. And then we kind of have a bump for the different knuckles. And I'm just trying to remember all the different subtle curves of the hand. My rule is that it just kind of curves in wherever there isn't a knuckle, and where there is a knuckle, it curves back out. For this hand, I was trying to make the fingers a bit larger. I often accidentally make the fingers a bit too small, and I'm trying to work on this. I especially accidentally make the pinky too small because my pinky is kind of small compared to the rest of my fingers, and so I tend to draw the pinky really small, but it should be a bit larger. That's the thing about using your own hand as a reference, is that the hands you draw might kind of have the own little quirks of your hand included. So I often accidentally make the pinkies too small, and I try to remember to make them bigger. Since this hand did belong to a male, I am defining the knuckles a little bit more, and I also bent the ring finger a little bit more, so I added some more shading to the ring finger. I'm trying to keep things pretty loose and sketchy. I'm not trying to clean things up a whole bunch. Just trying to sketch out the hand. I actually made the pinky a little bit too big in this. It's almost the same size as the ring finger, so I actually resize it after recording to make it a bit smaller. One thing to keep in mind when learning to draw hands is that you kind of just need to build up your visual memory of the hand. So staring at different hands and drawing them in different positions and building up your visual memory of the hand is really, really helpful. Lastly, I am just going in and adding a little bit more shading to where the fingers are bending. Adding the shadow really helps show that they are bending, and I also add a bit of shading around the knuckles and in between the fingers. So yeah, that is my hand drawing process. Usually when I'm drawing an actual picture, I would ink this and then color it, but I'm just kind of showing my sketching process for this video. So those are my tips for drawing hands. I hope this video was helpful. I know drawing hands can be really tricky, but keep at it, keep practicing. You'll definitely keep improving at drawing them if you practice. So yeah, that is all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you all next week in my next video. Bye!